Skywalkers and Skywatchers, lunatics, and everyone else. All right. What are we? Who are we? What's going on? It's Wednesday, 8:55 p.m. Eastern Time. We got our Jupiter coming up. Beautiful Jupiter tonight, and getting closer and more clear every night. I happened to take a look at the moon the other night at like 5 in the morning. Got a bit of the shot, and yeah, so it was a really great moon cycle this past month. So now the next few streams, I'm going to try and do Jupiter and maybe some Mars soon when that comes up a bit earlier. Hope you're all doing well tonight. Got a wide shot here set up with the 4 Jovian moons. Got Australis, AK John, Donald Yates in the chat, waiting for some more of our fam to come in. See Red Room, what's going on? Going to a concert? That's awesome. Yeah, not a super long show tonight. Maybe, I don't know, about an hour, possibly. I got labels here so we can, I'll tell you which moons we got. There you go. Io, Callisto, Europa, Ganymede, of course, Jupiter. Let me adjust this a little bit. So before the show, I prepped a little bit, and I realized, like, when you type Jupiter into YouTube, Jupiter Planet, Jupiter Updates, Jupiter News into YouTube, you get just like a whole bunch of really dumbed down content, I gotta say. Just either completely like exaggerating or just clickbaity titles or news stories that are like 1 or 2 minutes long. Some of them are about the pictures that James Webb took, the James Webb Telescope took of Jupiter, which are absolutely astounding, but really there's really no breakdown or contemporary update on Jupiter. And then I kind of went back to Electric Universe Jupiter stuff and also realized, like, Thunderbolts hasn't published anything in like 4 years on Jupiter. And so I thought maybe just talk a little bit about Jupiter tonight, as though we're looking at it through the lens of the stellar metamorphosis concept. Shout out Jeffrey Walensky, and I also wanted to shout out Baz Taylor is the other guy who works on it with Jeffrey, as well as Daniel Archer. So I finally got those names correct. Anyway, it basically proposes that Jupiter is really an old star at this point, older than our sun, older than the gas giants that we see in the cosmos, like the bright blue and red stars, and has basically become very complex in terms of its flows, in terms of its counter-rotation, in terms of having its own little micro solar system here. Really, it has about 70 moons that we don't see, and these 4 that we do see, Io, Callisto, Europa, and Ganymede. I'll put the titles back in a second. Just want to put them up there for now. So yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about that tonight. We'll wait for some more people to come in and play some tunes here, get the vibes going. Red Rum, I'm feeling you. Not religious in that sense, but I definitely understand. My mom has been going through similar types of things recently, and friends, parents are going through it. This year is one of those years. So heart's with you, and good luck to your mom. I hope she makes it through, or is just at peace. Well, yeah. Hard to say what to do in that case. You got to do what your heart says. What will make you feel comfortable, or I mean, what will make you feel okay down the line. But I do empathize. So yeah, a little bit of a wide shot here. Then we're going to zoom in, check out the bands of Jupiter, all the different flows and the currents. I didn't want it to start off as negative, but it's so funny how, like, we have access to seeing Jupiter. It's one of those amazing times. We have an incredible telescope peeping Jupiter, and really absolutely no adult, not in that sense, but mature content. Again, that always sounds so weird. But just like for grown-ups, like adult content about Jupiter, logical thoughts, discussions, debates. Nope, all pure hype. Something crazy is happening at Jupiter. Check out this date, all these emojis. and it's just such a strange world we live in. So anyway, more impetus for me to come on live and let's talk about Jupiter from a more intellectual standpoint, more respectful standpoint, and not really hype it up beyond what it really is, which is just this incredible system that we get to see and interact and learn from. Okay. Continue here with the jams. And get into some detail. here quick. Say what's up to Hurdy Gurdy Man, Genghis Khan, Ellie Wynn. Lovely to see you all. Welcome. I've adjusted the shot here so we can see some nice detail on the upper band region. We can also see the Great Red Storm, the Great Red Spot, bottom left corner. And now that I've punched the contrast, it's a little harder to see it, but you can see Callisto popping in on the right. Dr. Ayad, what's going on? Nice to see you. All right. So yeah, mellow day today. Things are going not too bad, not too badly. And yeah, I figured let's keep track of Jupiter as we get into opposition, where Jupiter is going to get closer and closer and more detail over the next week or two. Actually, probably over the just next 5 days rather. But either way, we'll still get a couple of weeks in. So the moon cycle is done. I treated myself to one final moon cycle the other night, the 23% waning crescent, one of my favorite phases, and just sat on the couch at like 5 in the morning and listened to music and just watched the moon all by myself. I rarely get to do that. Mary, nice to see you. Welcome. Hope you're having a great day. So yeah, I wasn't really expecting to stream, and then I kind of started reading about Jupiter today and all the things. I figured let's just do it. It's a perfectly clear night. I got the 11 set up, got the camera direct to scope. We're on 2x digital zoom, and I've adjusted the filters a little bit, so it's pretty nice detail actually, even though they're atmospherics. So let's just quickly present it from the context of stellar metamorphosis. If stars or instantiations of consciousness or any type of Z-pinch, chakra, point of instance in our conscious reality, starts at the Markland current point where you have two wires crossing. We create the star. Stars are spinning very fast. They grow out very large, very bright, off a ton of energy, and they have a ton of gravitational collapse, so they become these extremely large white stars. And as they go through a life cycle, they end up right around here where the brown dwarf stage is, where their inertial angular momentum of the planet, the spin, has slowed down a bunch. It's lost a ton of its mass. It's lost a ton of its luminosity. And it's along an electrical filament. So it is spiraling. It's got counter-rotating currents because from the top and bottom, you can imagine a coaxial electrical rope, magnetic rope, a Birkeland filament, electric current, whatever you want to call it. And this is what powers Jupiter. And then Jupiter, in turn, powers its own little solar system that we see 4 moons of, and apparently there are 75 others, or 76 others that we don't really see, or 72 rather, that we don't really see. Now, what's cool about Jupiter, besides that we're getting some amazing shots right now, is that Jupiter, if this idea of stellar metamorphosis is correct, which I feel like it is, then Jupiter has the potential to ultimately become a water world like Neptune or Uranus, and ultimately become a planet like Earth in some odd billion years, according to the theory. And so it's very interesting to change our perspective a little bit from really what is kind of just like people really have no context as to what Jupiter really is, how it was formed at all, why it looks the way it does. And that's what I'm trying to very clumsily articulate here. I will get better at it. It's been a few nights since I've done a show, and talking about Jupiter is a little bit different than talking about the moon. But either way, I see Renegade. What's going on? Point emerging, probability entering. Pepe. Rare Pepe. Yeah, the red band. Mary says that red band is getting tight. Jupe's belly is huge. Well, I actually did push the contrast a little bit, but yeah, it does look like that. Also, sort of looks like a strip of bacon through a magnifying glass. And also now I can't get away from that other image. I don't know if y'all saw it, but there was like this image of at the edge of a lake. If you imagine that you're looking into like or even a beach at a horizon inside Jupiter. So if you're sitting on a beach, the bottom half would be the sand, and the darker red band would be the horizon, and above that would be the sky. And the little orange sitting on a beach towel observing. But more Jello, what's going on? Ashara Jade, I see. I haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you. Just catching up on the comments over here. I guess I missed a few. Can't stay Jello. Okay, no problem. Okay, yeah, so just to continue that thought. So Jupiter is a star, or as a star. It's hard to make these titles sometimes because I want to be like, was Jupiter a star? Is Jupiter a star? It's so easy to clickbait, but I didn't want to do that. Jupiter as a star conceptually is very interesting because, like I was saying, we have very little context when I say we, I mean not just your average person, but just curious minds who are interested in Jupiter. I don't think when you look up details or videos or discussions about Jupiter from mainstream science that you can really gather proper context as to what it might mean, that what Jupiter really is. So if Jupiter is connected electrically to space, Jupiter is also its own little mini solar system. Jupiter has counter-rotating rings because it has an electrical system going through the center of it, creating counter-rotation because that outlines the Birkeland filament. Furthermore, you have an orbital plane, which is along the dielectric inertial plane of the torus, the donut, and the hypotrochoid, the hourglass shape that goes right in the middle of it, like an apple. You have laminar flow, so you have these kind of spiraling fractal wave fronts that happen between the counter-rotating bands. They're not really liquid, right? At this point, they're becoming more and more complex elements and molecules and going up the periodic table in complexity because ultimately everything is light. Light turns into hard light, turns into hydrogen. Hydrogen oscillates and has different frequencies and turns into all the other elements of the periodic table. These mix and merge and become more and more exotic and more complex, ultimately giving rise to the life we see here on Earth. And even further than that, or potentially maybe the life here on Earth is the pinnacle of the fractalization before it goes back to the trough of the wave. So if we imagine that, or consider that, we can think that Jupiter potentially could be getting more and more complex, ultimately could turn into something like a Saturn, and then turn into a Neptune, a Uranus, an Earth, and ultimately a desiccated moon, because at this point it would start to create a core, like an iron core, which will ultimately become the crust of a planet. And this is where planets are from, and this is where Jupiter may be from, and they're all connected along these transformation curves that are proposed by the stellar metamorphosis concept. What's up, Gnostic Chef? What's up, ZX6? What's happening? Cyber Sully, what's going on? Welcome. Cyber Sully says, been watching Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn march across the sky all summer long. Same, it's just been tough to kind of keep track of all of them in terms of a stream because they just rise very quickly in the east. And by the time I've set up, it's already long gone. Then Mars is kind of staggered, and then the moon now is staggered. So I'm going to try and keep up with Jupiter over the next week or so as we get opposition. And what else did I miss? ZX6 says, curious if the red dot is always visible to the Earth. So it's not actually. So that Jupiter is not tidally locked to Earth, and Jupiter is spinning. And if we watch this for the next hour or so, which we will try, I'll go as long as I have visibility, you'll essentially see the red storm move across from left to right and ultimately disappear around the back. So Renegade says, I'm a mushroom guy. I feel that. We're all mushrooms. Anyway, there is definitely a little mushroom, fire mushroom in there. Let's see. Dimethyltryptamine trip is DMT, Mary. Have you heard of DMT? Creates those really insane outer body experiences. And with field consciousness, though, DMT and psychedelics really just make a lot more sense if you can project consciousness into the field, and everyone else has a field, and the Earth has a field, and every creature has a field, an electromagnetic field that stores information about the self. Then you have all the, then psychedelics and psychotropics are much more explained physically. Jay Pershing is a fun guy. Ashara Jade says, I leave for work around 4 a.m. and the sky is always amazing. It really is. Like, if it didn't wreck my whole day, I would stay up really late, more often. I mean, I already do, but I'm going to bed around 3. And I don't think, it's not actually like mescaline, even though that's like the 3rd reference to mescaline today. The transcript of this video is going to be ridiculous. But looking at planets is the only psychedelic I need right now. So yeah, just wanted to talk say a few things about Jupiter. I'll definitely talk a bit more about it and over the next few nights as I get more and more articulate with it. We'll go back and forth, talk about some questions. It would be great to really just see different iterations of the moons, which we will, and see the Great Red Storm and how it evolves over the next few days. And then to imagine that Jupiter ultimately in a few billion years might actually become a habitable Earth, because it'll lose all its outer atmosphere, it'll basically shrink, it'll slow down its spin rate, it'll become cooler, and then ultimately it'll become a water world, and the water world will mix with, it will shrink down, it'll be a covered Earth, or like an Earth with giant oceans, and ultimately the oceans will dissipate and the inner core will be left along with oceans, and maybe we have a Jupiter Earth one day, which is really, really just an interesting and new idea. Let's see. Ellie Wynn says, what if the red dot is a mushroom? Well, I imagine that if you were to look at the red storm, if you were standing on the surface of Jupiter, that you'd probably see it like a giant hourglass shape, really, or like the stalk of a mushroom, just like a storm, right? It's like a huge, huge tornadic storm. I mean, you wouldn't really want to be anywhere near it, I'm sure, but it's pretty amazing to see. Also, like, the reason it looks like that is because mushrooms and storms both outline the fundamental structure of the geometry. The electromagnetic flux, the electromagnetic field lines, the structure of the ether, whatever you want to call it. It's really, there's so many different names for all these, the same thing ultimately. Just a quick note on consciousness, which is really fundamental to all of this ultimately, is that really consciousness belies all of reality. And consciousness itself is interaction of point instantiation and field or shell. So an apple with its seed, a planet with its magnetic fields and its children, its captured children or its birthed children, but like the moons, for example. But in stellar metamorphosis, because if we take it to its logical conclusion, even all these little moons might have also been stars at one point, right? So everything really has to start at a point where it has enough atmosphere, enough angular momentum, enough heat, and enough pressure to create something substantial. Now, not every star ends up being a habitable or emergent Earth, but that is actually a way more logical premise for where life comes from, is that planets ultimately get to a point where they can host life, and that's where, or consciousness as we know it, and that's when consciousness emerges. So the Earth peopled us and made a fungus or a bacteria called humans, and humans are now perceiving planets and Earth, and I think it's a much more holistic understanding to realize that there's nothing strange about our existence, actually. It's perfectly natural. And if we take consciousness as fundamental, we realize that everything is self-assembling, because at the very basis of it all, we have an assembling or intelligence, a boundless intelligence called consciousness, or called something called God, right? But if you think about it and you look at yourself in the mirror, you realize that you made your own body. You made your own eyeballs, and you put everything in the right place, and you make your body work. And no ad hoc or abstract deity did that, or does it right now, but you did it. So when we take consciousness as fundamental, and we take the physical fact that we made our own bodies, then in a way God is proven to exist, but it comes with the caveat that you are, in fact, the embodiment or the aperture of the God, the ultimate God. Now, you'd probably get a lot of complicated, convoluted answers and questions around that, but that's really what it really means, is that so Jupiter made itself, and we made ourselves on Earth, and Earth made itself. Everything ultimately, in this idea of panpsychism, or consciousness being fundamental, this is a much more logical, much more affirmative, much more empathetic, and much more empowering way to look at the universe, as opposed to this is that, quantum mechanics is this, Big Bang is that, humans are this, everything is dark, it's confusing, we're powerless, we're victims, versus we are the embodiment of the ultimate creator, in physical reality too. With great power comes great responsibility. Exactly, Renegade. That's one of those great quotes that works for this particular thing. Carolina, what's going on? The big red storm is a portal to unknown feelings of ourself. I feel it's like a birthmark, maybe, right? Everybody's got marks on their body, on their skin. Earth's got pock marks and birthmarks. So does the moon. All these different planets have one injury or a scar. Now, granted, it also could be a giant storm, a lightning storm of towering proportions that is actively moving across the surface, which that also works. The surface being this tiny rocky core that's just starting to form, which, if you imagine, is really like the surface of the moon or the surface of Earth, but just all rocky. But it's much smaller than an Earth right now. And ultimately, Jupiter is really baking it. It's cooking it and complexifying it and fractalizing all the life and what we need for complex intelligence and consciousness as we know it, the interaction of self and other. Now, that is not to say that Jupiter itself is not already completely conscious, right? It holds its own little solar system in play, and it's now evolving and complexifying itself. So Jupiter is, for me, definitely intelligent and has thoughts just like we do. Now, granted, it's not the size of a human, so therefore the thoughts of a planet are probably different than ours, but all right. So, I have a lot to say. I feel like, Mary, thank you, says I'm very coherent. I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place today. I was like ready to talk about it. And when I get out live on the show and I'm looking at the chat and I'm looking at Jupiter, I kind of stumble over my words a little bit. But yeah, beautiful Jupiter tonight. A little bit more detail here, and then I want to zoom out again so we can see the Jovian system and the moons for those who just are showing up now. Mary says, does the moon's color change ever so slightly when it's over the ocean as opposed to when it's over the land? Are you talking about the Luna? So our moon, I mean, changes as it moves across the sky and moves clouds with it, generates clouds between us and it. Also, I've mentioned before how the image of space itself, with this phenomenon that planets, the moon, and stars are all at the same focus distance in our sky. Right, so the moon is at a distance, the stars are much further away, the planets are at different distances, and yet when you focus our camera or just our regular eyesight, and we look up at the atmosphere, the ionosphere, the magnetosphere of Earth, we see everything come into focus at a certain point. This is something, again, that's really never talked about, but when I consider what it may be, is that the image of space comes to a point on the shell of Earth, and our vision sends an emission to pick up this signal at the shell at a certain point in the sky. And therefore, that certain point is where the image actually of space is formed. It really brings up a whole bunch of questions with it, but that's what I imagine is going on. Now, what happens with the moon is that it is completely... as it's moving across the sky as we see it, it changes so many different things about what's in between our eyes and the moon. So different densities of clouds, different diffraction patterns, different points in the sky, because if the moon is higher up, you get that aberration. If it's too low down, you also get aberration. Things are constantly being diffracted and messed with. So when you're saying if it's over land or over water, that's really tough to say, really. I imagine that if it's over water, you're going to also get more ice crystals and more moisture between us and the visibility of the moon. Therefore, likely it would change. What's going on, Hot Rod Scott? Yeah, that's a great point. I'd say the moon changes shape, perspective too. Sometimes it looks like it's being squeezed. That's basically what I was saying about diffraction and refraction. So if you look at the moon when it's rising, it looks squashed. Planets do too, but we don't really see them cross the horizon very often. But the moon for sure looks squashed at certain points, squashed and stretched. Ellie Wynn says the planet is like a womb. Yeah, so see, I like, it's interesting. I'll just bring up a point about stellar metamorphosis and also birthing, and how it is challenging to imagine both scenarios, because we're talking about, complex bodies in terms of moons like Io or Ganymede or Callisto versus like our moon or something like Ceres or Mercury, right? Were those the core, the star cores? Were they stars, then planets, then ultimately desiccated planets? Or were they stars like Jupiter or Saturn that created cores that didn't bear life and they just immediately went to desiccation? And then the other idea is, did something like Jupiter with the Great Red Storm, did it give birth to a moon? Now, my problem with like gas giants or any type of star basically giving birth to a planet or a moon is that I feel like regardless of whether the star came from two wires crossing or came from the center of Jupiter, let's say, they would still have to start as a spark. I personally don't, it doesn't make sense to me to imagine a gas giant like Jupiter giving birth to a rocky body, like a spherical rocky body. That just says that there's no origin for how this rocky body was formed unless something like Jupiter actually spits out its own core. But that doesn't make sense, because when a mother gives birth, it doesn't actually spit out its own life center. It creates a whole new star inside the womb and then gives birth to a star along an umbilical cord, a human. But the human is, of course, 7 to 9 stars long. It's a stack of plasmoids along a Birkeland filament. So basically a stack of plasmoids along a Birkeland filament can give rise to another stack of plasmoids along a Birkeland filament and then expunge it or give birth to it. So I'm just trying to think that makes sense that potentially the Great Red Spot is a birthing spot, but I would imagine that it gave birth to a spark, to something that had its own momentum, its own inertia, its own luminosity. It just doesn't make sense that it would give birth immediately to a desiccated body. And I know that there are things like that in, for example, like in Electric Universe cosmology or reconstructed history, where they talk about potentially Jupiter giving birth to Earth, or giving birth to the Moon, or giving birth to Venus as a comet, for example. I think it's drawing like too fine a distinction. Every human, every life force on Earth comes from the same kind of initial point. And it just doesn't make sense to emerge as a skeleton. Nothing emerges as a skeleton from nature. Nature always starts as something that goes along a path from birth to golden age to rot. Does that make sense? What do y'all think? Oh, interesting. Like the red spot's like a placenta. I mean, it could be still. Maybe it was Venus, right? Maybe Venus came out very hot with an atmosphere star-like. But we don't know that. I mean, the red storm could be very young. It could just be like a massive electrical. It could be a representation of an electrical current that is emanating from Jupiter that has been created by an instability. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like having like a freckle or a mole on your face, right? What creates that? But I would tell you that every single mole and freckle and pimple on your face has an electrical filament emerging from it, like a coaxial electric current. Looks probably very similar to what a storm looks like. What's going on? One Last Try 9 says, I'm interested in getting started in filming the sky. Any recommendations on setting up a rig? I have a department store telescope now. Okay, so what I would recommend is you can look at the description of all my videos, and it has my setup in it. But I would say it depends on the budget. If I were to recommend, and you had the type of money, I would say something in the range of $1,200 to $2,000 would probably get you a great setup. I would say if you wanted to do filming, you'd probably want to invest something to $500 to $800 or $500 to $1,000. The actual recommendation would be either a Celestron Nexstar 6 SE or a Nexstar 8 SE, and a camera would be something like a Sony Alpha 6000 series. And then you pay for all the accessories. Those are a few $100s as well. You need batteries, you need memory units, T-ring adapter. But I think a Celestron Nexstar 6 SE plus a Sony Alpha 6000 is around $2,000 with everything, maybe a little more. And you can get shots that are a little, not maybe this detailed, but pretty good, pretty damn good. Hey y'all, are you seeing some of these amazing details in the lower half storm right here? To the top left of the red storm, you're actually starting to see some of those laminar flows and the hydrodynamics, what's happening really is the center band is going one way and the band underneath it is going the other way. And so like when I showed the diachotron instability, we get this thing called shearing. And shearing is, in very simple terms, one thing rubbing against another thing going in the opposite direction. And when you have intense fluid, heavy gases and gases that are complexifying and turning into flowing liquids and flowing plasmas, you have these types of shearing mechanisms where you have spiraling fractals that are happening between the counter-rotating bands of Jupiter. It's pretty awesome to see. Mary says 6-inch praying mantis in my garden yesterday. That's the blessing. I love praying manti, but not as much as I like spiders. Hurdy-gurdy, Matt. Yeah, you asked me earlier about the 19.5 degrees. I just think that that changes over time. I feel like there's a lot of people put a lot of energy into describing like the angles, the tilts of planets and try and link it to something, but I actually don't feel like there's a real logical rationale besides structurally the universe is very coherent and it fractalizes. And it could also be related to the magnetic field. It could also be related to differences in charge dynamics, depending on where a planet is or a star is along the transformation curve or along the Birkeland current. It could also be numerology, but numerology arises from the same consciousness. So nothing esoteric is not exoteric. Everything that is hidden and obscure is also right in front of you at the same time. It's just an interpretation of it that is hidden from most, ultimately, because they want that. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. The 19.5 degrees stuff is something that I don't find enough information about that actually, where there's a logical conclusion. And the stuff that I've thought about in terms of planets, the tilt of planets, the tilt of Earth, the tilt of Uranus and Neptune, these ideas make a lot of sense if these tilts ultimately change over long periods of time, that things are electrical because they have wires going through them, and there is a particular angle to things essentially trying to reach an optimal equilibrium. Point of most strength might be this angle. That's a couple of ideas. One last try. Back in 2015 when I first started the channel, personally I hate debunking videos. I don't hate anything, but I dislike videos or channels that just immediately go after debunking ideas. But I've said this on the channel before, this is not obviously a flat earth channel. I don't believe in flat earth. I don't think it's a logical methodology. I don't think it's a holistic science. But I have done all the tests, the cold moonlight, the horizon tests, the dome tests. I've read all the theories and concepts before. I've heard them, I've watched the videos, and just without any judgment, the simple thing about flat earth is it just doesn't reach new conclusions. So science, like electric universe, at least allows you to get further along the path of questioning. And then ultimately, when you get to where what I'm talking about here, where we have consciousness, we have electric connectivity, we have stellar metamorphosis, we have panpsychism, this type of stuff completely makes all these theories really superficial is the word I'm looking for. All theories, like I'm talking about hollow earth, Big Bang, quantum mechanics alone, flat earth, relativity. The universe is not just one of these theories. And there's just no way it can be that. So the universe has to be a nuanced, multi-dimensional, multi-layered concept. And that's what I'm trying to propose on this channel. But yes, I've done the tests. The horizon curves because things come to a focal point. The reason it looks like, so hollow earth, right, thinks that the water is going upwards because we're inside Earth, and flat earth thinks it's completely level. But what's really happening is that things are circular and spherical, and spheres, like bubbles, when they meet other bubbles, they kind of flatten out boundary layers. So you see nested hexagons. So that's where we get the kind of flatter lines in nature, flattening, so to speak. It's because when two spheres, like two balls, like two balloons, to put two balloons together, and they're basically oblong or oblate, between the two balloons, because they are self-aware and they don't go through each other, they actually create a boundary layer because they're trying to come to an equilibrium. And this is where you get side-by-side hexagons, like craters on the moon, honeycomb and bee hives, basalt columning, cellular structure, molecular structure. But Hot Rod Scott, like, but they tell us, but I'm, there's this insinuation that the government or the agencies keep secrets. But of course they do. But if you think about it from a consciousness perspective, and you realize that we created our own bodies, and every animal creates its own body, nobody is doing anything to you, because we're all really at the very bottom of it all, the same entity that is just perceiving our own existence to have an experience. So that the meaning of life is to have this experience. So if you feel like things are happening to you, this is the experience you're choosing to have. If you say that, you can basically, people can say, no, I didn't make my eyeballs. A god made my eyeballs, like a separate patriarchal, bearded, white or black or mixed race god made my eyeballs. I had nothing to do with it. You can definitely say that. But physics, like rational physics, makes you really question, because you actually made your eyeballs. And I say eyeballs, I just mean it could be lungs or hips or heart or intestines. The self organizes high, complex, ordered fractal geometry that functions as consciousness. It way supersedes all these theories and all conspiracies completely in one fell swoop. So I know that it sounds almost erudite to completely say, oh, I'm above all these theories. I mean, all these theories have a little bit of the puzzle, but no single theory here, no matter what is being hidden from anyone, no one single theory is going to answer it all. It still requires multidimensional, multi-layered thinking. One Last Try says, the electric universe theory is new to me. It sounds pretty interesting. I want to look into this. Well, please look into Thunderbolts Project. I've put together a ton of playlists about this stuff. Again, I've kind of come around after years of being completely like 100% electric universe to realizing that even Thunderbolts Project is limited in some capacity, because they're stuck on destroying the paradigms of the past. They're kind of locked off in a way in certain ways. Even Sky Scholar, Pierre-Marie Robitaille, is blocked off in his way. I got to give shout-outs to Jeffrey Walensky, and the way he talks about stellar metamorphosis really opened my eyes to a few things where, for example, I'm not saying that electric universe is wrong. I'm saying that fundamentally there's a lot of merit to it, but in and of itself is not like the ultimate answer to everything. But it does get you to a place where you can question things in a much more coherent way. Hot Rod Scott says, I think you're overthinking it. I don't know what you mean by that. I know that's like, it's a way to kind of shut me up, but first of all, you've heard me talk a million times. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And I'm definitely overthinking it. It's like saying somebody's narcissistic. I'm perfectly fine being narcissistic, egocentric. Like all these words just mean nothing, because when we really consider it, there's so many higher level aspirations to identify with, just the fact that we can see Jupiter here. Of course we're going to overthink it. Why would we underthink it? I mean, I think in a way, like, Flat Earth basically underthinks, right? It thinks, okay, I'm a victim. It'll always be hidden. No one really knows. And relativity does the same thing. They're like, humans are puny. The Earth's magnetic field, the moon's the moon's wimpy magnetic field, puny humans, cancerous people. It's constantly denigrating and putting down. It's the big put down, as Alan Watts says. And Flat Earth does the same thing. Hollow Earth does the same thing. It's about judgment and put down. Real ultimate science, real logic, to me, is not put down at all. It's very much open, expansive, welcoming, empowering, for sure. Discog, what's going on? Ashar Jade says, Buddy James has a model that is incredible. Yeah, I've first of all, I know Buddy, love Buddy. always talk about Buddy. Linked him in here. I'll link y'all to my playlist, which is a good time to talk about that. I've put together a playlist. Rupert Sheldrake, Buddy James, Jeffrey Walensky, Eileen McCusick. Really great places to kind of go and start and think about things. I'm looking at my channel here and the thumbnail looks wrong. I had a Jupiter thumbnail. That's weird. Anyway, where's my new playlist? This Master References playlist is very cool. Please watch it, share it. Hot Rod Scott says, I fully accept I don't know what it is. The phrase belief is the enemy of knowing does apply. I don't know. I mean, there are certain like turns of phrases like that throughout our history that sound pretty good, but they don't really mean very much. It's kind of trying to oversimplify ideas. Belief is the enemy of knowing. Does anyone really know what knowing is or what belief is? To be lied, to believe things. All of this is just how you want to live, right? How you want to experience the world. If you want to experience it from the perspective of things being done to you, then that's how you're going to experience it. And if you want to experience it from a perspective of you doing all of this, the Atman, the self, the Tattvam Asi mentality, where like you've brought yourself into existence, which is the much more physical, there's physical proof of it. That's why I was saying, if you look at yourself in the mirror, there is no abstract God that made you. There is you. That's it. And people, I could tell you matter-of-factly that that's the ultimate answer right there, but you still wouldn't believe me. So it's really, that proves that it's really about perspective. You can hear me say a million things, and it still wouldn't change your mind. And therefore, that in and of itself is the proof that people need to have their own perspective about things. So therefore, there's no point in debunking or debating topics that are conspiratorial for me anymore, because of course it's a conspiracy. People group together and decide to hide or divulge information about a certain topic to others. It happens every single day in every single organization around the world. They are conspiring. You could just use that word in that way. What's happening, Easy E? Good evening. So yeah, I was talking about Buddy James. So Buddy, the Doherty set, as he calls it, is exactly this donut, nested donuts, right? And hourglass shapes, hypotrochoids. And the same thing that Ken Wheeler talks about with the fields, this is really fundamentally the field. We're still talking about a grand unified field idea, and everybody's coming at it from a different angle. But when you really listen to somebody like Rupert Sheldrake or Eileen McCusick, and you talk about the human biofield, this is the new idea, the idea that people don't consider, which is that we carry our memories and consciousness outside of the human body, outside of the skull, in a field around our antenna body. So mainstream science is like, yes, humans are an antenna, but for what, right? They never follow through and say it's fields. It's layered plasma interactions, like vibrations, oscillations, that are stored in our cloud, like a nucleus and an atomic structure, like a planet and its field. Humans have their field. And that's a huge idea, much, much bigger than any shape of the Earth idea. Who cares about the shape of the Earth when you realize that everything we've ever thought or experienced is actually in a plasma shell around the body? Much, much cooler and more giving and more, I want to say giving, it's not even giving, it's a concept that allows you to derive even more ideas and thoughts from. And it's actually novel. What's going on, Peter Battle? We're all conspiring here digitally to have a good time. That's excellent. Absolutely true. Renegade says, who is sending the signal? PETA? So that's a great reference. if anyone studies any of the ancient Egyptian stuff, they constantly talk about Giza as being the Giza thing or being the Egyptian thing. But in fact, there was this other place run by Ptah and Hermes, right? So was it the valley? What was it? Damn, just as I'm talking, pretending to be so smart. Ptah, Egypt. It was in... right. Ptah, also spelled Ptah, creator, god, and maker of things. Hephaestus. It was in... There was a place, and it was always like an Elvis reference. It was the Memphite Triad, or Memphis, right? That's what it is. The Great Temple of Ptah, Memphis. So Memphis in Egypt is one of the more ancient cities, actually, and I feel like if you talk about conspiracies and things online, like everyone's really focused on the pyramids and the Sphinx, but really the idea behind Ptah is a whole other story. So I'm just pulling together all the facts. I'm reassembling from my field. I'm remembering as opposed to dismembering thoughts. So Ptah is pictured, if you imagine holding the staff, and the staff has the Jed pillar, right? The Was scepter, the jackal head, which is the zinc rod with the toe claw. And you had the Jed pillar, which is an ancient battery, I believe. You also had it was essentially like a very primitive, or probably not very primitive, very advanced for the time. It almost looks like the microphone stand. So, and what do they call it? So the Was scepter, the Jed pillar, the Ankh, right? There was the golden Ankh that also was part of this device, and you spoke into the Ankh, and you put this the Was scepter on your toe. And I heard recently something that actually blew my mind here, which was Dan Winter talking about how they actually activated the pyramids. And so he postulates that there were priests or workers that actually took these staffs and actually sat and tapped out piezo crystals that activated the pyramids. Like, so they would stand around the Great Pyramid from the shafts, and these shafts had piezoelectric long crystals, and they would stamp and use these staffs to actually activate these crystals and ultimately from all sides and create a central beam that actually, the idea that giant pyramids were actually power stations, so they would activate the pyramid in that way, creating a global connected power source. The host of hosts, the divine comedian, the Billy Crystal. Good job. Amy G, what's going on? Thank you. Hope you're having a great night. Sorry, I know I'm all over the place about this, but I haven't thought about it in years. But really, it's like the same, the statue for is it the Oscars? Yeah, the Oscars, where you have the silhouette of the person, like with the feet together holding the staff. If you look up a picture of Ptah and Memphis, and you'll see this staff, this Was scepter, Jed pillar, Ankh configuration. And this is, for a while I used to think it was this magic, but when I heard this idea that Dan Winter proposes, where they were using these staffs to actually just chant and do mantric resonation with piezo crystals, that really sounds great and logical. Kimmy, been such a long time. Nice to see you. I really hope you're doing great. Miss you too. Glad you stopped by. Sorry if I missed anybody's comments. There's a lot of good ones in here. Cybersully says, 2 people getting together to plan anything is a conspiracy. That's true, exactly. So it's very easy to say, oh, conspiracy this, conspiracy that. Yes, conspiracies exist constantly. Discog says, perhaps belief and knowing be not enemies but co-creators in the centrifuging vortex of creation. See, I need to speak like this more clearly, more poetically, but that's really beautiful. It is, it's true. Belief and knowing are 2 sides of the same coin, right? You can't have one and not the other. So you believe some things, you know other things, and your entire life is adding a little bit more to each of these sides. Let's see. Hurdy-gurdy man says 19.5 degrees on a sphere defines underlying hexagonal structure. See, that's a great point. Yeah, when I was talking about it earlier, I was trying to think of whether the angles were like that. But yeah, that is a really good point. Hot Rod Scott says, God is no abstract, Captain. Choice, consent is the perspective. Agree with you. I guess I missed which point, but if you agree with me, then that's awesome. No, God is no abstract. Well, but there is a little bit of, I'm not saying you particularly, but there is this idea. God is abstracted into an anthropomorphized spirit or illusion or concept that is other than the self. But the self is what is doing pretty much everything, at least from the perspective of the self. So, but the abstracting is something that actually is necessitated by the structural geometry, a little bit like the relationship, well, not a little bit, but exactly like the relationship between the flesh of the apple and the seed of the apple. Seed cannot become flesh, flesh cannot become seed. That's not to say that can never happen, but we need this equilibrium to exist so apples can propagate correctly. Seeds know the code to create another tree, but they don't taste very good. And the flesh of the apple tastes great, but it has no information if you plant it to create another tree. So the structure and the geometry of an apple is such a beautifully giving concept. Again, something that underlies everything, and you can use it to really understand cultural interactions, politics, and also the self in a way that's visibly represented. Fantasy Ecstasy, what's going on? Jupiter looks great tonight, I agree. I have been also talking a lot, but I'm just letting it simmer here because the tracking is pretty good. And you can see from, 30 minutes ago till now, how the red storm has moved across the surface. It is dimming a little bit, so I feel it's like my windowsill coming through, and I'm also seeing some clouds. So I'm going to go as long as I have this shot here. Hot Rod Scott says it's chicken or egg riddle leads to a creator. I think that's, so I've mentioned it before, but I think it's just, let's use the tools and the puzzle pieces that we can point to and bring them together, connect the dots, and get to a place where we can actually get to a thing where it's like, okay, there is this fundamental consciousness, intelligence, boundless intelligence, and at some point, it's essentially either points or it's strings, right? It's wiggly waves, and these waves are made of particles, and sometimes they're waves. What really is likely the case, waves, anything that's a line, is just a series of points. So point instantiation really is the absolute fundamental unit of matter. Matter, in order for it, once it comes into existence, there's matter against self against other. So point against shell, nucleus against shell, human against biofield, planet against magnetosphere, sun against its field. Right? That is what creates the interaction, the patterning of consciousness. But at the very fundamental stuff, if we really look at under the microscope and smash atoms together, you get to a place where things are coming in and out of reality, so to speak, superstrings, and where these experiments are being done. But it just points back to the fact that the two sides are two sides of the same thing. And so if we get to there, then we can maybe start asking, like, what put that there and what makes it oscillate? Those are two big questions. What makes dark matter or etheric plasma or pure consciousness oscillate into these wires that cross wires and create the points, instantiations of consciousness? So, of course, I don't particularly have the answer for that, but if you couple it with the idea that we made our own body, I would say the reason is to have an experience. So once we get there, so we did it, we want to have an experience. The I, the id, wants to have an experience, therefore it othered itself. We othered ourselves in order to reflect. And I think that's the most simple, most fundamental logic, rational, physical logic explanation to where we are right now. Why, where, what more? There are other things, of course, but I think that's where you can get to beyond all studies, all conspiracies, all governments, all contemporary mainstream stuff. Really, it gets down to it, two sides of the same coin, the coin being pure intelligence, the structure being the fundamental geometry, the reason being to have an experience. A divine spark. Well, yeah, so it could be that, right? Like something breathed into the ether and created the oscillations or the resonance. But then again, you also made your body, therefore you breathed life into the ether or into pure intelligence to other the self. So you can't escape the responsibility, one, not you, but the collective you or the singular you or me, we did it ultimately. So no other abstracted thing breathed life or created the divine spark other than you. It is circular, but it makes more sense when you really, again, look at yourself in the mirror. You're doing all this stuff. You make your hair, you make your body, you make your skin, you recycle it, you pattern yourself. ZX6, thanks for showing and answering my question about the red dot. Yeah, right? It's pretty cool, like that we can see it move across. And it's swirling too. That's what's so cool, is that it's moving, but it's also swirling. Silent Murmur, long time, good to see you. Hey, hey. Think Adam, what's going on? TBS, how come we never go over the tear in the sky, right? Tear, not tier. So the crack in the sky or the hole in the ozone or crack the sky, the songs and the concepts from the movies, all the nuclear tests, that's what I think it really is that there was a period where there were those high altitude nuclear tests. They basically really ruined, they created a hole in the ozone. And I imagine it's because you're creating high intensity nuclear blasts at that level. You're going to blow a hole in our sky, so to speak. And I think what happened is it affected the weather on Earth. It affected satellite systems. Actually, at the time that they did it, there weren't really a lot of satellites, but it did affect electrical systems on Earth. I think this is as far as I can research it, the crack in the sky is alluding to that, at least in the short-term past. If you take it from the context of electric universe and catastrophism, the crack in the sky is from the polar configuration or the stacking of the planets, or let's say comets passing by. If you take what Tess Clark says and some of the Thunderbolts Project, Greg J. I mean, he's not part of Thunderbolts, but in the paradigm of electric universe or electric universe catastrophism, there are a lot of allusions to the cracks in the sky. But I believe that the cultural memification of crack in the sky from all the different media outlets and different conspiracy documents in the books allude to this high altitude nuclear stuff, which is almost like we pushed it too far and we put a hole in the sky. Now, it's been tied to a wormhole. It's been tied to like Donnie Darko style parallel multi-dimensions, Marvel. So I think people have kind of imposed a reality on the crack in the sky as they want to know it, because again, or even the Orion belt or the trapezium cluster being a wormhole or a portal to another dimension, because people want salvation or they want an othering. And I don't mean everybody, but I think it's, again, people want more than what we have right now, because what we have right now is boring or scary or whatever it may be. So people are trying to always find this next, like, much bigger thing. But I think it almost alludes to self-condemnation to a degree. Mary, if I fall, will you catch me? Of course I would. And I think you're maybe asking me to play a song and shut the hell up. Maybe I'll do that momentarily. I know I was like going to play a whole session tonight, and then I ended up talking for like 30, 40 minutes now. but I'm having such really good conversations tonight. It's early, right? It's 10 o'clock, so I have a lot of people here tonight, and it's really, really nice to read some good comments. Cybercelly says, when the zygote is formed with the sperm and the egg coming together, there's an electric spark that is observable. 100%, right? There's also like, there's this weird debate between electric universe versus a gravity or relativistic universe. So we run on a power grid. We use electricity to monitor the human body. We use electricity to communicate. Why wouldn't space be electric? Like, it just makes no sense to even have this debate about whether there are giant electric cosmos. Of course there are. Of course there are. You don't use gravity mobile devices. You don't use gravity to power the grid. You don't use gravity to monitor human bodies or cells. We use electricity. It's so obvious. I mean, it's so simple. Let's see. Ashara, thanks so much for saying that. Appreciate it. Yeah, let's see some moons around Jupiter. Here we go. There we go. All right, so let me play the song Catch right here for Mary, and I'll put the labels of the moons. You can see at the left, I believe that is Io, right there. These are the 4 Galilean moons of Jupiter, the Jovian system. So now thinking about it as Jupiter being a star like our sun, and its moons being like the planets around the sun. So we're almost looking at a little mini solar system of Jupiter, and it makes a lot of sense in that context. Then we've got Callisto to the right, Europa, and Ganymede. So there are some labels, and let's get some tunes up in here. Let me know if you have any song requests. If I missed your comment, I still appreciate everybody's great comments tonight. Very poetic, to be honest. I love it. Y'all are so smart. No sarcasm, even if that sounds sarcastic. It's not. I'm really happy to see such a cool chat tonight. And all the oldies, too, of course. Ashara and Kimmy. So nice to see you.
I lived home at 17. Couldn't tell you if I was living a dream. What could I do? For a while I played the field. How could I prove the hidden yield without the blues to feel? My heart was cruel and left no residue.
Wow, wow, wow. Awesome to see everybody here, all the old faces and names. Of course, there are a couple of oldies that are not here, but Jedi Princess, amazing to see you. So nice to see you. Hope you've been well. You had surgery. Oh my God, I hope you're feeling better. And I see NGC coming in. I hope you're doing great today, Spaceling. Much love to you. Mary and Ellie and Chris Kelly. Gosh, Chris Kelly, what's going on? Long time. And Kimmy, of course. So cool to see everybody. And Ashar, Jade. All right. Yeah, rad. And who else? Rich Goat, I see you up there too. Welcome. Let me know if I missed anybody. Super heartwarming. So yeah, tonight was really fun. Is really fun. I'm going a little bit longer as long as we got the shot of Jupiter in play. Jupiter and its moons, and or if you want to see the Great Red Storm, I think I want to go back in and do one more zoom shot before it disappears completely so we can see where the storm ends up. Lunatic Party, hells yeah. You know what song is coming up right here. Put your dancing shoes on, yo.
Do you know why I've been beaten from the heart? I know, no lie. I've been thinking about you all night. Why? No why. I've been waiting for your white light. No why. Thinking that you should be mine. So call me up, and let's get down, down. So call me up, and let's get down, down. Oh, you send me messages across the cosmic network, and you send me pictures from across the astral plane, and you send me cryptic kisses across the matching network. So call me up. Je t'attends, mon amour, assez tuel, ainsi la même que la même semaine, agitant la éternelle, avec on son oublié. Je suis la même que ton avant-l'aile chaque jour. Je t'attends, mon amour, avec les mecs sans agrévé. Et c'est mon âme magnétique, c'est l'amour magnétique, c'est mon amour magnifique.
All right, little will-powered. So much fun to see this chat tonight. I'm gonna keep going a couple more songs here. I have Jupiter still under the windowsill, so I think I might zoom in right after this during this song. So let me know if you want me to stay on this shot or zoom in, or yeah, I'll stick around for a little bit more. Let me know. I think we should check out the Great Red Storm. So let's do that. Let's do that. This called, where is it? This one going out to Elita, Ellie and Wingsley. It involves a cactus and a guitar and a bunch dancing. So, and then the next one we'll do Feel For You, I think, yeah. let's chat a little bit. I see Buddy in the chat. I always talk about Buddy, y'all know. And I put Buddy in my playlists, and your videos just are so good, man. It kind of blows my mind. I don't want to say I'm jealous because I'm so happy that you're doing them. You know, I'm not jealous. I'm so empowered by them, but I need to do my own, which is what I'm doing here, kind of live like I do. But you've done them so concisely, and you jam-packed them with information. So if you haven't checked out Buddy Doherty, Buddy James's videos on Thunderbolts Project, please go do that. I know most of you have. But let's see. We can definitely do strut. Let me just quickly say hi to, did I miss anyone in here? Jedi Princess. No, I got everybody, right? Yeah. Sorry, I got really distracted there for a moment because Buddy asked me, can you explain to my girlfriend what is happening with this alignment here and the equinox? So the equinox, I should have mentioned, it is tomorrow around 9 p.m. and I'll probably be on doing Jupiter if the skies are clear. So we have our autumnal equinox coming through tomorrow. But if you're talking about the alignment or opposition of Jupiter, that's one thing. Maybe that's what you're talking about, but I gotta say it's one of those areas that I'm not like super versed on, to be honest, because I just haven't really studied the equinox and the equinoxial effect, but I just imagine that we're in the structured geometry, and that's really where I look at it from. So depending on where Jupiter is along its Birkeland current is where we're seeing it now, and I know that's just like a really lame answer to what you're talking about, but help me out here. Yeah, I don't know. I do hear about, like, there are some really cool ideas about the equinoxes and what we see in the sky above our heads, depending on which time of the year it is. But it brings up so many ideas about, like, what time is itself and, like, where we are on Earth at this time and how we experience seasons and how we experience time in general. In terms of the alignments, I do imagine just a bunch of different geometry going on. I can visualize it the way you've presented it, the way I think about it, but I'm not exactly sure why there's a particular alignment. I imagine that depending on the transformation curves of the stars in stellar metamorphosis, we got Jupiter along a certain type of Birkeland filament, potentially, you know, within the orb, nearing our sun, which itself has its own solar system, but Jupiter is like a mini solar system. So you got solar system within the structure of another solar system. Anyway, those are some thoughts that came to mind. Buddy, throw me a line here. Anyway, little toy box and what was the other one? Strut and toy box. Let's do it. Beautiful. I'll just, yeah, so many ideas at once. Quickly here, looking at the Great Red Storm about to hit threshold on the right. Really cool that we're getting to see almost the whole thing. So if you want to later on, go run it back to the beginning, and you'll see the Great Red Storm moving across while Jupiter is spinning. Gosh, now I've forgotten English and speaking. Well, I got flustered here seeing all the old friends. Again, Miguel and Vicky, hope you get through and join us for the party. Strut coming in. No, that's not strut. That's strut. Oh, just a quick note here just about Buddy's magnetohydrodynamics. What I was talking about earlier with the shearing, what you see with the different counter-rotating bands of Jupiter is so important here. It's one of those little things that people don't talk about when they talk about Jupiter. Mainstream certainly doesn't talk about, like, why the bands of Jupiter are different colors, why they rotate, and how they interact with one another. So definitely check out Buddy's videos and you'll see a lot of the references that will give this more context. But that's what we're seeing here, you know, and of course the spiral of the Great Red Spot. All right, less talk, more rock.
Boxes, your infinite toxins, all got something to say.
shout out in here to Paula. Nice to see you. And welcome back. And Miguel showing up at the very end. That's awesome. So sticking here with Jupiter on the close-up shot. Red Storm I think we will get to see it disappear, which is amazing. And of course, perfect for this kind of stream. Broken Toy Box coming in. Great vibes to the Space Tribe. Super nice to see you all. right, quickly jumping in to say how much I appreciate this, and I've adjusted the moon. Me and my multiple personalities have adjusted the Jupiter, the great Jupiter. And yeah, got a little better view for fantasy directly. Thanks for inspiring me to do that, because it's already fading above my window, but adding a little bit more aperture made some sense. So love to see everybody party in here. I'm trying to find the perfect song to come up next. I thought I had it, but it slipped through my fingers. It's got to be vibey. I should have asked for it earlier. This one's called The Sky Don't Lie, and that, I think, will fit the vibe quite well. Going a bit longer here, party people. Such a high vibe tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I can't tell you y'all how much. This is such a pleasure to be able to share this with y'all and share the music and vibe out on this really, really esoteric, fringy, edge of space show together, checking out the most really cutting edge ideas together. And of course, space, like nobody gets to see it. I mentioned this before, but when I started scoping, I was like, man, I have to share this. Like, how could I just watch this on my own? So that has really kept me going. Everybody's reaction to it and the idea of actually sharing it and kind of embodying the whole interaction principle of consciousness as it is. So truly, truly cool and fractal. So I don't want to break the vibes here with my ramblings. We still got Jupiter going. I love it. I know it's going to be just enough time for us to see the red storm disappear around the side. I got Race to Space, or the Space Race, coming in. NGC request. A little bit darker vibes here, but let's keep going with it. Definitely some mushroom wrote this.
Give you love and I come in peace. Feel your pain cause it's part of me. I know you really think we need buddies, but I'm amazed by the shapes of your lips. Hear your name but we come in peace. It's insane that you're part of me. Never lifts from the iron wrists. It's as if everybody is the same buddy. Feel insane and I yearn for relief. Maybe someday there's someone me. I am made of the will of somebody. Someday, buddy, we'll get the slip. Here in space now we come in peace. Some of the things that you cannot believe. Ready to trip on the drift. We can lift to the new, cause I love to give you. We are the space race, we are the moonwalk, we are the French race, we are the sequel, we are the ether. How are we still here? On your place along the space race. Sitting at the red light corner on a beach outside of Hill. Across the street from where we grew up after bombing raids. And somehow we lived, somehow we died, somehow we came back from the city cries. We tried through civilized genocide. Kind of started with your armies, coming down from the west step to it. I got nothing but love to share with you. We are the space race, we are the moonlight, we are the franchise, we are the sequel, leader of the ether. How are we still here? Looking for a place along the space race.
We are the franchise, we are the sequel, made of the ether. How are we still here? That's what you write at 3 in the morning when you think about doing a space show and writing a song about the planets and consciousness. So I got a song in mind. It's coming up next. But before I do that, I wanted to just say thank you to Buddy for stopping by. Because I really, obviously, I appreciate every single one of you for all different reasons. And I appreciate that everybody came through tonight. Really so empowering and fun and love all the way through. But yeah, so if I'm just picking out certain people, don't take it personally that I'm not calling out each and every one of you, but I am. Anyway, but Buddy, thank you so much for stopping by. Really, I want to just encourage you to keep going and keep doing the videos because really nobody's talking about the fundamental geometry and nobody's really talking about the donuts, the nested donuts, the toroids and the hypertrochoids. So yeah, really appreciate what you're working on and you flatter me, like I said. I will eventually get things going. I mean, I have actually gotten some slides done. I've gotten some compounded ideas together. I've written a little bit. I've written an outline of what I want to do. Renegade says, Buddy James will change the world. I believe it. I believe it. So yeah, just gushing a little bit about Buddy, but there are many others who are doing incredible work as well, not to single anyone out, right? But yeah. So yeah, just to talk about that. So a little bit, I put together this idea, but I mean, really, the kind of documentary or this kind of video that I want to do is multi-layered. You know, it's fundamental consciousness, extended mind, panpsychism, morphic field, right? But it's also electric universe, connected space, filaments in space, coaxial Birkeland currents, self and other Zen Vedic understanding, lunar geology and earth geology, but then now from the perspective of stellar metamorphosis, holistic understanding of star birth, planetary formation, life and death. So it's a very, very complicated thing in terms of putting it all together, but I have actually started working on it. I got inspired. I mean, of course, I've been sort of doing it live on the show, but I really feel like putting it together in a concise documentary would be great. So a little bit about my plans. I don't know when that's going to happen. I kind of, but we're in the process. That's the whole thing here, right? It's how we dance, maybe not the ultimate goal. Jupiter still with us. Great red spot disappearing. Did anyone guess the song? I don't think anyone guessed the song, but Soulfire or Set This Feeling or Set the Feeling, right? God damn it. Here we go. No, it is this. Here we go. Vibe out with one more little ride here with Jupiter.
So glad I found your tree, drift like wood on the beach. We suffered long and late. Your world is coming apart at the seams.
That's pretty funny. That version just ends with a crash. Perfect. So we got some smearing right here of Jupiter as it goes above my windowsill. The joy, the joy and curse of scoping from indoors, but of course the 11 inch is inside my enclosed shed, and at some point I can't scope any further upwards, so Jupiter is actually just going out of view for me. I know a lot of you already know that. But that's what's going on here. It's been a killer shot tonight of Jupiter. Great detail. Red storm moving all the way across, plus all the Galilean moons in different configurations. Really wonderful. Tomorrow, day after, I'll try and be back as Jupiter gets closer, at least in terms of how we see it. And 11 inch exactly. Let's see, did I miss any comments? I saw a bunch of stuff over here. Renegade made a great comment that said, if you lived for the moment, you would experience neither. And I think you were talking about anxiety or future, past or future. And it just made me think of the idea that really we do live exactly inside a moment bubble, right? We live in the moment, quite literally. And as we progress along the Birkeland filament, as we oscillate as a stack of toroidal, like energetic donuts with plasmoids at the center of them, our chakras, our stars, we're basically pearls on a string, stars on a string. And what was I saying? I was saying that as we do that, we actually oscillate and create the moment bubble. And so we do all live in the moment. But like I said earlier in the show, and this idea of recognizing that we do things, it's completely a realization that is enlightenment, which is why when Alan Watts made this great, he refers to this koan about, well, it's not even a koan, it's more of a saying where you could meditate for 30 years and never reach enlightenment, because it's truly, enlightenment is about recognition or resolve or self-assertion or self-empowerment. But it's actually just the realization that you're already doing the thing that you so want to be doing, which is to be in control. And so I feel like, anyway, that's what it triggered in terms of a thought. But yeah, we do create the exact moment, but we also live within the moment bubble. So we all live in the moment. The hop vibration. Renegade, yeah, you mentioned this, the whole Gareth Lisi and all the dimensions stuff. I actually went back and looked into that. I remember Gareth Lisi from way back where, what was it? It was the polytohedron. So, and then it made me think of Terence McKenna and the great geometry at the end of time that is drawing us closer to it like a moth to a flame. The amplituhedron, that's what it is. The dodecahedron. The amplituhedron, the Gareth Lisi idea. I think also, what's his name is talking about it, this current guy. Trying to place him. He was on with Lex Friedman. I've mentioned him before anyway. His name will come to me. But people are talking about this complex geometry. But really, I think the way Buddy explains it on the Thunderbolts Project video is actually a little bit more, is much cleaner and more simple and straightforward than the way this other guy talks about it and the way it's really presented, because it's usually encouched in so much complicated math that it's very hard to really wrap your mind around it. Anyway, check that stuff out. NGC says, thanks for the ridiment. The ridiment tonight was very good, very fun. So Jupiter has now escaped, and I think I'm getting really hungry. I hate to cut the party short, but I'll take a few more questions, reporters. Yeah, just throw me some chats, thoughts, and I'll stick around a couple more and find us a song to take us out here. Kind of wish we had the moon, but Luna is done for now. It was an amazing session. Well, it was an amazing whole month of scoping with y'all, and then of course sitting late night watching the 23% coming up against Sinus Iridum, just like zoning out at 5 in the morning with the moon was such a nice closing point to the cycle this month. I felt like right after that I woke up energized, and now we're in this whole Jupiter opposition mode, so that's going to be really interesting. What do we got in the chat? Kimmy says, thanks for the dank tunes. Thank you. Amazing journey. I love it. You're freaking awesome. Let's see what else. Renegade says, Buddy can see what we can only think. Well, I can think that. Well, I mean, I can see that. Well, no. Honestly, like, Buddy is one of the few people that really has put this structurally visibly. I mean, I definitely remember seeing Ken Wheeler talk about it with the whole ferrocell. But really, throughout I got to give props to the original place where I saw the whole Apple theory and the shell idea, the human biofield idea, was actually from Thrive. Does anyone remember the Thrive documentary with what's his name? Foster Gamble and his wife, and then there was the whole thing with Nassim Haramein. That's when I first saw like the toroidal flux and the apple shape, and I was like, oh, this is what the human eye is, and this is how optics work. And ultimately, when I saw Eileen McCusick and Thunderbolts Project and Rupert Sheldrake, it all clicked. But Buddy definitely has a gift for presenting it, and also the whole way he's put it together in terms of the mathematics, the whole Bessel function, the harmonic cascades. To be fair also to Dan Winter, who also has his own way of visualizing and articulating this neg-entropic principle. I sometimes get off the show and think I don't talk enough about Dan Winter because he's quite brilliant. It's just the whole, it's just he has so much to offer, but there's a whole rabbit hole of the ufology side of it. I don't know. There's some stuff. Peter, thanks so much, Peter Battle. So More Jello says I could go for a boudin sausage, collage, and coffee right about now. I don't know. I haven't had coffee. I haven't had sausage in like forever. Boudin. What is the boudin? Is that like blood sausage? Gosh. I don't know, but definitely I'm going to try and make a snack here because I'm definitely starving. My stomach is grumbling. All right, my friends, my family, my space fam, my spacelings. I'll be back again, like I said, tomorrow, day after, for some more Jupiter here. And then I'll also check out some Mars and see if Mars is looking good enough to stream. Please leave me a comment and share the video. And let me give you the master references playlist one more time, because maybe somebody you know would like to check out all these people. I'm just going to list through it because it's worth just shouting them out. When I do that, actually let me quickly, I'm going to put in a video of Jupiter so we're not looking at a blank screen. Why not? Let's look at that. Should have thought about that earlier. All right. Either way, quick shout out. Jeffrey Walensky, Eileen Day McCusick, Sky Scholar, Pierre-Marie Robitaille, Alexander Unziker's Real Physics, Dyslexic Artist Theory on the Physics of Time, Halton Arp, Intrinsic Redshift, Ken Wheeler, Theory of Apophysis, The Secrets of Magnetism, LPP Fusion, Eric Lerner, Dan Winter, Thunderbolts and Buddy James, his video about donuts, Electric Universe Eyes, The Electric View, The Geometric View, and See the Pattern. Kolochki. It's a cool word. There are others, but those for now. Dissident Science, Demystify Science podcast, Kronos, the old Electric View shows that I was on with Shockwave and all the boys. So really mostly Rupert Sheldrake and Eileen McCusick. You got to give them credit for really just honing in on this human biofield consciousness and the extended mind. It's crazy. It makes so much sense. Love oscillating with y'all, and clouded out. So this is Jupiter from earlier. Just so you know, Io on the left, Callisto, Europa, and Ganymede up at the top. And yeah, let's play some Golden here. This is what I wanted to play earlier.
Don't want you coming down my chimney. I don't understand your clothes. Enemies like Easter bunnies. I don't wanna play the pro. 44v44. Don't sweep the streets no more. Automatic Easter pressure. Cash machines can go to hell. I don't need your Easter bunnies telling me what news to sell. 44v44. Don't count your
Alrighty, last song time. That was a bit of Golden. Salt Man is the outro. Going out to NGC. Jedi Princess, wonderful to see you. Have a great night if you're still on. Dr. Ayad, nice to see you back. I see Waleed in the chat. Waleed, I'm just about to wrap it up, but you can go through the show. The last couple of hours have been pretty amazing. Just watching Jupiter tonight on opposition. Not a major alignment per se, but mostly that Jupiter is better detailed over the next week than we're really going to see for a long time. So they call it Jupiter in opposition. Tomorrow's the autumnal equinox. So there's a particular alignment, so to speak, but mostly how it translates is that we're going to be able to see some really nice detail on Jupiter. This is actually a pre-recorded shot because I've already lost visual on Jupiter, but this is what I'm going to let fade out. We got Jupiter in the middle. Bottom left is Callisto. Then to the right, actually, sorry, bottom left is Io. To the right of Jupiter is Callisto, Europa, and then Ganymede up at the top. Yeah, definitely go back. I talked about a lot of different things. I was trying to be articulate, but mostly just having lots of fun tonight, seeing all some old faces, some new faces, really great. Just a heartwarming show tonight and empowering. Sending lots of love out to y'all. Oh, Prism Dagger started playing in the background. But yeah, so thank you all so much. I'll see you, yeah, tune in maybe tomorrow, the day after. We'll see some more of this Jupiter with a totally different configuration, talk a bit more about stellar metamorphosis and consciousness, and be brilliant as possible, but also flawed and brilliant. Because everything that's too perfect is just not as enjoyable. Gotta have a little bit of spice in there. All right, my space fam. Saltman coming through. Please share the video, share that playlist, and leave me a comment or a question. Maybe we'll talk about it on the next show. It's your captain signing off on another fringe of space, edge of space, rocket ride. Till next time, spacelings.